So you can go out there, you can go to the 2004 census, look at your zip code, find out the income levels of your zip code, the gender, the race. You can break down all their information, and it's really amazing how much information they put out there. You can even look at the USPTO even publishes some of its information about patents and things like that. So if you're looking for something related to your industry and your patents, you can find stuff on USPTO as well, uspto.gov. Trade associations, every group has an association. The Inventors, we have the United Inventors Association. Toy industry, Toy Inventors Association. Housewares, Housewares Association. So look for your association. You can go to their website, and sometimes they do their reports, and you may have to become a member, but you can get access to some of that information. Now, we mentioned Google, and the last one I want to mention is more of a hands-on way to get to know the environment of your product, and that's a shelf study. So I'll briefly talk about the shelf study. Shelf study is going shopping. That's all it is. It's that easy. You go shopping, but with one thing in mind. You're looking for competing products and how industry, how your competitors are doing, everything out there, what stores they're selling at. Say you sell a hose that doesn't crimp up. I know every time I go to water a lawn, my hose likes to get in a little knot. Say you have a hose that doesn't knot up. Well, which stores is that going to be at? Probably some nurseries, probably Home Depot, Lowe's, things like that. So go to those stores. Then you want to find out what department it's in. Is it in, well, most likely it's going to be in lawn and garden, or is it going to be in plumbing because it's a hose, or whatever the case is. So find out what the department is at the store. And see how much shelf space the stores give to the product. Because really, if you ever want to put your product on a store shelf, whether it's you're licensing it to someone who's going to put it there for you, or you're putting it there yourself, that store is going to have to remove someone else's product to put your product up there. They're not going to add an addition to their store. So you have to prove that that product is going to be better, or sell better, or give that store better margins. So look at how much shelf space they give to products that are competing with yours. You can find out a lot about your industry by looking at the brands, looking at the manufacturers, and see if it's a monopoly. Weed eater, you go to the weed eater section of Home Depot, it's probably all weed eater. There's probably a few competitors. But if you go to hoses, there's maybe a couple different manufacturers. So find out, is it one major player, or is it a fragmented group of players? You can also look at materials. That's going to give you a sense when you go to manufacture your product. If you look at the materials, you can see what other people are doing. If everyone makes all their hoses out of plastic and yours is aluminum, you might want to rethink your material, because there's probably a good reason that people are making it out of plastic, whether it's cheaper or more durable or whatever the case is. So look at the materials, and that'll help you in the manufacturing. You can, of course, gauge the pricing of competing products. You can look on the back of products and see if they're patented. You can find the patent numbers, as John was talking about. You can find the patent numbers right there on the packaging. And you can always take a product, as I had mentioned, you can take a product, and although it has maybe the brand of Weed Eater, you can go do some more research, dig a little bit more, and then you can find out the name of the manufacturer. Maybe it's Hanseng Manufacturing in China that actually makes the Weed Eater, and all Weed Eater does is put their stamp on there. So you can find the manufacturer, and then you have an end to manufacturing, and maybe they can manufacture your product too. It depends on if they're exclusive to that product, or whether they can make competing products. So that'll help you when you go to manufacture it. So that is the shelf study, and that is secondary research. Now for primary market research, we're going to break it down into a couple levels. This is, again, we're talking about your product. This is your product. This is primary market research. We are trying to find out everything we need to know about your product. Qualitative. Qualitative is the soft, touchy feel about your product. How does it look? What noises does it make? Do people like it? That's qualitative. Quantitative is how many people would buy your product? What will they pay for? And so really the qualitative, you're getting opinions about your product. You're usually going to ask a small number of people, so you're getting that very soft and touchy feedback. And the methods are focus groups and one-on-one interviews. For quantitative, the goal is to ask a lot of people about your product to get a lot of data and really the main goal is to, or the main way of doing it is through surveys. So the qualitative focus groups, focus groups are a very unique way of doing market research, primary market research. There are people that do it professionally, and there's a reason. That's because if you create your own focus group, sometimes there are people that are going to influence decisions, or they're going to be very opinionated, or maybe they're going to disrupt the group, and so they have professional moderators. But typically in the focus groups, they're usually 8 to 10 people is the recommended number of people. Interviews, of course, you can do one-on-one interviews in person. Just go talk to potential customers in your store. Hang out, if you have the hose product, go to Home Depot, hang out in the area where your hose might be selling. And this is actually a suggestion one inventor had told me. He said, walk up to someone that's looking at competing products and tell them that you have a friend that's inventing, this type of hose that does this and that, but you don't really know what to think of it, and ask them what they think. And that's a great way to lower their defense mechanism and get some good feedback in person. And the reason you tell them that you're not the inventor is because they're not going to want to offend you. However, if you tell them that your friend's the inventor, they're going to create that one level of separation so they don't mind being honest. And you want them to be honest. You don't want the happy-go-lucky story. You want them to be honest with you and tell you give you some really good feedback. So that was a suggestion of someone who said that's how they did one-on-one interviews. The quantitative, again, you're asking a lot of people, and that's mainly done through surveys. If you want to be statistically significant, that means if you want your data to really be worth anything, you need to ask a lot of people, usually more than 400 people, ideally 1,000, really. But there's a certain point where you start asking 5,000 to 10,000 people, it doesn't help you that much. But if you get above the 400 to 1,000 range, you're going to be decently statistically significant. And the ways you can do that, online, obviously the preferred method, cheap, easy. Mail costs a little bit more, but it's of course done all the time. And phone, we love it when people call us up with phone surveys. So people are still doing that. So those are the 3 ways you can do surveys. Now I want to touch on a couple of tools that you can use to do your own quick surveys. Now these are not tools that necessarily, the feedback you'll get from these tools is not something you could really take to a Procter & Gamble and convince them to license your product. But this is stuff that is going to give you a better sense of where to go with your product and if you should be spending time and money on your product.